You're told you can have safe, you can have affordable, or you can have beach. Pick two. That's the lie every real estate agent in Florida is selling right now. Safe neighborhoods near the water? Sure, if you've got $1 million lying around. Affordable beach living? Absolutely. In towns where your car gets broken into twice a month. But here's the thing nobody talks about. I analyzed the FBI crime data for every single coastal town in Florida. I cross-referenced median home prices with drive times to actual public beaches. And I found something wild. 98% of Florida's beach towns force you to compromise. They're either too dangerous, too expensive, or too far from the water to count. This video is about the other 2%, the unicorns, the towns that somehow give you all three. Low crime rates, home prices you can actually afford, and sand between your toes in under 15 minutes. I'm about to show you 5 places that break the rules, and if you're planning to move to Florida or you're already here wondering why you're paying so much for so little, this might be the most important list you see all year. Because here's what everyone gets wrong about Florida. The famous beach towns, Naples, Miami Beach, Siesta Key, they're not hiding their prices. $1 million for a 2-bedroom condo isn't a secret. It's the entrance fee. And sure, the crime rate is low when everyone in your building has a doorman and private security. That's not a unicorn. That's just being rich. The real question is this: can a normal person with a normal income actually afford to live near a Florida beach without checking their Ring camera every 5 minutes? The answer is yes, but you have to know where to look. Before we get to the list, smash that like button if you're tired of settling for less than you deserve. And subscribe, because I'm breaking down the real data on Florida living that nobody else wants to talk about. The stuff that saves you $50,000 in mistakes. Now, let me show you how I found these towns. This isn't a vibes-based list. I'm not picking towns because I like the color of the beach umbrellas. This is data. Cold, hard, FBI-reported, median home price verified data. Here's what qualifies as a unicorn town. First, safety. And I don't mean safe in that vague, oh, it feels fine way that real estate agents love. I mean FBI uniform crime reports. Violent crime and property crime rates that are measurably below the national average. We're talking about towns where your chance of being a victim of crime is lower than the typical American city. Not just Florida. America. Because let's be honest, Florida has a reputation, and some of it's earned. Second, affordability. Here's the benchmark. Median home prices at or below the Florida state average. Right now, that's hovering around $400,000 to $410,000 depending on the month. Some of these towns are going to come in significantly cheaper. Others are going to flirt with that line. But none of them are going to make you house poor just to say you live near the beach. And yes, I know, $400,000 isn't pocket change, but when you're competing with Miami condos at $800,000 or Naples estates at $1.2 million, it's a completely different game. Third, beach town. This is where I draw a hard line. If you have to drive 45 minutes through traffic to see the ocean, you don't live in a beach town. You live near a beach town. And that's fine, but it's not what we're talking about here. For this list, you need to be able to go from your front door to a public beach in 15 minutes or less. Not a private club, not a gated resort. A real beach where you can park, walk on the sand, and not feel like you're trespassing. That's the formula. Safety, affordability, and proximity. All three, or you don't make the list. And here's the wild part. When you actually run the numbers, almost nobody qualifies. Most beach towns are safe and expensive. Some are affordable and dangerous. A handful are safe and affordable but 60 miles inland. But 5 towns? 5 towns thread the needle. So let's get into it. Starting with number 5 and working our way up to the town that might actually be the best kept secret in Florida real estate. Coming in at number 5 is Port Charlotte. And if you've never heard of it, that's exactly the point. Port Charlotte sits on Florida's southwest Gulf Coast, tucked between Fort Myers and Sarasota. It's not flashy. It doesn't have celebrity restaurants or boardwalks packed with tourists taking selfies. It's just quietly great. Here's the data. Port Charlotte's crime rate clocks in at around 10 incidents per 1,000 residents. That's lower than 52% of Florida communities, and for a town of its size, it ranks as one of the safest in the nation. The violent crime rate specifically, it's 30% below the Florida average. So you're not living in a gated fortress. You're living in a normal neighborhood where people leave their bikes in the driveway and nobody thinks twice. Now let's talk money. The median home price in Port Charlotte is hovering between $249,000 and $310,000, depending on which neighborhood you're looking at. That's anywhere from 20 to 40% below the state average. You can find solid 3-bedroom homes with actual yards for under $300,000. That's not a typo. And the beach? Port Charlotte has 11 public beaches scattered across Charlotte County. You've got Gasparilla Island, Don Pedro Island, and Englewood Beach all within a 15-minute drive. Some of these beaches are so quiet you'll feel like you discovered them yourself. But here's where Port Charlotte gets interesting. It's not just affordable because it's in the middle of nowhere. It's affordable because it's practical. The local economy is stable. There's a Publix, a Walmart, and all the chains you'd expect. Schools are decent. The community skews slightly older, which keeps things calm. Is it exciting? No. If you need nightlife and art galleries and brunch spots with Edison bulbs, Port Charlotte is going to bore you to tears. But if you want a 3-bedroom house, low crime, and a 10-minute drive to turquoise water without spending $500,000, Port Charlotte is the move, and honestly, the fact that nobody talks about it is exactly why it works. The moment Port Charlotte becomes trendy, those home prices are going to spike. Right now, it's still flying under the radar. Which brings us to town number 4. Palm Coast is the town that makes 0 sense on paper. It's on Florida's northeast Atlantic coast, sandwiched between Daytona Beach and St. Augustine. Both of those cities are tourist magnets. Both are expensive. And yet somehow Palm Coast sits right in the middle of them, affordable and safe, like someone forgot to adjust the prices. Let's talk crime first. Palm Coast has an overall crime rate of about 8 to 9 incidents per 1,000 residents. That puts it safer than 98% of American cities. 98%. The violent crime rate is less than 2 per 1,000. Your chance of being a victim of violent crime here is 1 in 530. For context, the national average is 1 in 250. So Palm Coast isn't just safe, it's really safe. The kind of safe where people walk their dogs at night and don't carry pepper spray. Home prices? The median is hovering around $330,000 to $350,000. Still below the state average. Still affordable for a coastal town with this kind of safety record. And the beach situation is almost unfair. Flagler Beach is 5 to 10 minutes away depending on traffic. It's not a secret, but it's not overrun either. Long stretches of sand, fewer crowds than Daytona, and actual parking spots that don't cost $20. If you want something quieter, Washington Oaks Gardens State Park has a beach with a rocky shoreline that looks like it belongs in New England, not Florida. The vibe in Palm Coast is suburban but not sterile. It's planned, which means the roads make sense and there are parks everywhere. Lots of retirees, but also young families moving in because the schools are solid, and the cost of living is reasonable. Here's the catch, though. Palm Coast doesn't have the same small-town charm as some of these other spots. It's newer, less historic. If you're looking for cobblestone streets and buildings from the 1800s, St. Augustine is right there. But you're going to pay for that postcard aesthetic. Palm Coast is for people who care more about their bank account than their Instagram feed. And honestly, that's not a bad trade. The fact that you can live 10 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean in one of the safest cities in America for under $350,000 is kind of absurd. Especially when you consider that the same money in Miami gets you a 1-bedroom condo with a view of a parking garage. But we're just getting warmed up, because town number 3 is where things start to get really interesting. Satellite Beach. If you know, you know. If you don't, you're about to. This is the town that people who move to Florida for the beaches wish they'd found first. It's on the Space Coast, just south of Cape Canaveral, which means you're close enough to watch NASA launches from your backyard. And yes, that's as cool as it sounds. But let's talk numbers first, because Satellite Beach doesn't mess around. Crime rate, one of the lowest in the entire state. The violent crime rate is 106 incidents per 100,000 residents. The national average is 370. That means Satellite Beach is 71% safer than the typical American city. Property crime is also way below average. This is the kind of town where people still leave their car doors unlocked. Not because they're naive, but because crime just isn't a thing here. Now, affordability. Here's where Satellite Beach starts to push the limits of our definition. The median home price is currently sitting around $460,000 to $525,000 depending on the neighborhood. That's higher than our other picks. But here's why it still makes the list. For a beachfront town with this level of safety, that price is a steal. Compare it to nearby Melbourne Beach, where homes start at $600,000, or Vero Beach, where you're looking at $700,000 and up. Satellite Beach is giving you the same quality of life for $200,000 less. And you're not just near the beach, you're on the beach. Satellite Beach has direct Atlantic Ocean access. The sand is steps away. You can surf before work. You can take your kids to the beach after school. This isn't a 15-minute drive, this is a 5-minute walk. The community here is tight-knit. Lots of military families because of Patrick Space Force Base nearby. Lots of retirees who sold their expensive homes up north and wanted something quieter. The schools are top-rated. The town itself is small, only about 11,000 people, so it has that everyone knows everyone vibe without feeling claustrophobic. Here's the thing about Satellite Beach, though. It's not cheap because nobody wants to live there. It's cheapish because the inventory is insanely limited. There are maybe a dozen homes on the market at any given time. If you want to buy here, you have to move fast. And you have to be okay with the fact that there's not a ton of shopping or nightlife directly in town. But if your priority is safety, proximity to the ocean, and a community that actually feels like a community, Satellite Beach is one of the best values in Florida, period. And if you think that's impressive, wait until you see town number 2. Edgewater, Florida. I'll bet money most of you have never even heard of this place. And that's exactly why it's on this list. Edgewater is a tiny town on Florida's east coast, just south of Daytona Beach and right next to New Smyrna Beach. And when I say tiny, I mean it. Population 5,000. No stoplights. No chain restaurants except for a Chick-fil-A that opened recently and is treated like a civic landmark. But here's what Edgewater does have. A crime rate that's 64% lower than the Florida state average. Let me say that again, 64% lower. The overall crime rate is about 9 incidents per 1,000 residents, and most of that is property crime like theft, not violent crime. In Edgewater, violent crime is almost non-existent. And the home prices? This is where Edgewater becomes absolutely unreal. The median home price is $171,000, you read that right. $171,000. That's 35% below the Florida average. That's cheaper than most landlocked towns in the Midwest. And you're 10 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean. New Smyrna Beach is right there. White sand, great surfing. Fewer tourists than Daytona. And Edgewater residents have full access without paying the beachfront premium. Now let's be clear about what you're getting here. Edgewater is not glamorous, it's not hip. There's no downtown with coffee shops and boutiques. You're going to drive to New Smyrna or Daytona for most of your shopping. The restaurants are limited. The nightlife is non-existent unless you count watching the sunset from your porch. But if you're someone who wants to own a home outright, or you're trying to retire on a fixed income, or you're just tired of throwing money at rent in an overpriced city, Edgewater is the answer. You can buy a 2 or 3 bedroom house here for under $200,000, with a yard and a garage and a 10-minute drive to the beach. The job market is growing too. Job growth in the area is projected to hit 43% over the next decade, which is well above the national average of 33%. That means more people are moving here, but it's still small enough that it hasn't been ruined yet. Edgewater is the town that real estate investors are going to kick themselves for not buying into 5 years ago. Right now, it's still affordable. In 5 years, who knows? But we're not done yet, because the number one town on this list is the one that truly does it all. The town that perfectly balances safety, affordability, and beach access in a way that almost feels like cheating. Port Orange, Florida. This is it. The unicorn. Port Orange sits on the Atlantic coast, just south of Daytona Beach. Close enough to have access to everything, far enough away to avoid the tourist chaos and inflated prices. Let's start with safety, because this is where Port Orange really shines. The overall crime rate here is around 13 incidents per 1,000 residents. Violent crime is 30% below the state average. Property crime is also significantly lower than most Florida cities. Port Orange consistently ranks as one of the safest mid-sized cities in the state. You're not living in a gated community, you're not paying HOA fees for private security. You're just living in a place where crime isn't part of the daily conversation. Affordability? Port Orange has a median home price of around $320,000 to $350,000. That's right in the sweet spot. Below the state average, but high enough that you're getting quality neighborhoods with good schools and maintained infrastructure. You can find move-in ready homes here for under $300,000. You can find newer builds for just over $400,000. There's inventory, which means you're not stuck in bidding wars or settling for a fixer-upper you don't want. And the beach? Port Orange is 5 to 10 minutes from Daytona Beach, and even closer to quieter stretches of sand, like Ponce Inlet. You've got beach access without the Daytona boardwalk crowds. You've got restaurants and parks and bike trails along the Intracoastal Waterway. The town itself feels like a real community. It's not a retirement village. It's not a college party town. It's balanced. Families, retirees, young professionals, good schools, including some of the highest rated in Volusia County. The cost of living is below the national average. There's a Publix. There's a Target. There's a Costco nearby. This is the town where you can actually live, not just survive. Not just scrape by. Actually live, with savings in the bank, with the ability to take your kids to the beach on a random Tuesday afternoon because it's only 7 minutes away. Port Orange doesn't have the wow factor of some of these other towns. It's not trendy. It's not going to be featured on HGTV. But that's exactly why it works. It's functional, it's safe, it's affordable, and it's right on the water. If you're moving to Florida and you want all three of those things without compromise, Port Orange is the answer. It's the unicorn that nobody's talking about, which means it's still attainable for normal people with normal budgets. And that's the whole point of this list. Because of the myth that you have to choose between safety, affordability, and beach access, it's just that, a myth. You don't have to compromise on your dream. You just have to know where to look. So, there you have it. 5 towns that prove the impossible is actually possible. Port Charlotte on the Gulf, quiet and underpriced. Palm Coast on the Atlantic, safe and overlooked. Satellite Beach on the Space Coast, tight-knit and pristine. Edgewater, the hidden gem that costs less than a used car in some cities. And Port Orange, the balanced winner that gives you everything. These towns aren't perfect. They're not Miami, they're not Naples, but they're real, they're attainable, and they're waiting for people who are smart enough to see past the hype. Now, finding the right town is step 1, but step 2 is just as important, because even if you move to the perfect place, there are still traps waiting for you. Financial traps, insurance traps, HOA traps, the kind of mistakes that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars if you're not careful. I've made a full video breaking down the 5 biggest retirement traps in Florida that everyone falls for. The stuff realtors don't tell you. The stuff that shows up 6 months after you move and drains your savings. That video is linked on your screen right now. If you're serious about moving to Florida, or if you're already here and something feels off, you need to watch it. And if this video helped you see Florida differently, hit that like button. Subscribe for more real data on living in Florida, and drop a comment below. Tell me which town surprised you. Tell me if I missed one. Tell me if you think I'm crazy. Because at the end of the day, the best place to live isn't the one with the best marketing. It's the one that fits your life, your budget, your priorities, and maybe, just maybe, it's one of these 5 towns that nobody's talking about yet.